Is it possible that there is something out here that we literally haven't seen before?
Just a magnificent looking animal. It's only 3 meters long. It didn't have a mark on it.
For nearly 30 years, False Bay was considered one of the greatest places on Earth to witness great white sharks in their natural habitat. Stretching along the coast near Cape Town, South Africa, its waters attracted marine biologists eager to study these legendary predators, filmmakers searching for breathtaking footage, and thousands of tourists hoping to experience the thrill of seeing a great white launch itself completely out of the ocean while hunting seals. Day after day, cage diving boats carried visitors into the bay, where encounters with the sharks were almost guaranteed. The spectacular breaches became world-famous, appearing in countless documentaries and shaping the image of the great white shark for an entire generation. Everything about False Bay suggested stability. The sharks returned year after year, their distinctive dorsal fins allowing researchers to recognize individual animals they had followed for decades. It seemed impossible to imagine these waters without them. But before we uncover the mystery that changed everything, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We're working toward our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps us continue bringing you incredible true stories from around the world. Then, almost without warning, the impossible happened. The sharks began to disappear. It started quietly in 2017. Researchers noticed that familiar sharks, individuals they had documented for years, were no longer showing up. Sightings became less frequent. Cage diving companies that once guaranteed unforgettable encounters began returning to shore after entire days without seeing a single great white. Soon, those empty days turned into empty weeks. By 2019, the transformation was almost unbelievable. Great white shark sightings in False Bay had fallen to nearly zero. A population that had ruled these waters for generations had vanished in less than 2 years, leaving behind empty seas and unanswered questions. The disappearance quickly became an international mystery. Scientists searched desperately for an explanation. Some believed overfishing had reduced the sharks' food supply. Others blamed climate change, arguing that warming oceans had forced them to migrate elsewhere. Pollution, changes in ocean currents, and increasing human activity were all suggested as possible causes. Every theory sounded reasonable. Every theory had supporters. But none of them could explain what had truly happened. Then, the ocean offered its own disturbing clue. Great white shark carcasses began washing onto South African beaches. These were not ordinary deaths. Each massive predator had suffered almost exactly the same injuries. Between the pectoral fins was a clean, precise opening. The liver had been removed with astonishing accuracy, leaving almost no damage to the surrounding tissue. In several cases, the heart was missing as well. The rest of the body had been left untouched. The pattern was too consistent to be a coincidence. Something was hunting great white sharks, killing them with remarkable precision and taking only the most valuable organs before leaving the rest behind. The discovery shocked the scientific community. For decades, great white sharks had been regarded as the undisputed rulers of the ocean, predators that feared nothing because nothing hunted them. Yet the evidence lying on South Africa's beaches suggested exactly the opposite. Something powerful enough to challenge one of the ocean's most feared hunters had arrived, and whatever it was had driven an entire population out of waters they had dominated for decades. The idea seemed almost impossible to accept because the great white shark had survived for approximately 16 million years. Known scientifically as Carcharodon carcharias, it had endured dramatic changes in Earth's oceans, survived mass extinctions that wiped out countless marine species, and continued evolving into one of nature's most efficient predators. Growing up to 20 feet long, equipped with jaws capable of generating around 4,000 pounds of bite force, and armed with electroreceptors that could detect the heartbeat of prey hidden beneath the sand. The great white possessed sensory abilities refined through millions of years of evolution. Its lateral line could detect tiny movements in the surrounding water from remarkable distances. Every feature of its body was designed for one purpose: hunting. For generations, marine biology had treated one idea as unquestionable. Great white sharks sat at the very top of the food chain. They were apex predators. Nothing hunted them. The carcasses washing ashore proved that belief was wrong. Something was hunting great whites. Something had no fear of the ocean's most iconic predator. The breakthrough came when researchers turned their attention to two unusual killer whales that had been seen repeatedly along the South African coastline. Scientists had monitored the pair for years because they were instantly recognizable. Both animals had collapsed dorsal fins, a rare feature in wild orcas that made them easy to identify even from a distance. The researchers gave them simple names based on the direction each fin leaned: port and starboard. At first glance, they appeared to be ordinary orcas, but closer observation revealed something extraordinary. Most killer whale populations specialize in hunting particular prey. Some focus almost entirely on salmon, others hunt seals, while certain groups even target large whales. These hunting traditions are passed from one generation to the next, becoming part of an orcapod's culture. Port and starboard, however, had developed a specialization unlike anything scientists had documented before. They hunted great white sharks. The first confirmed evidence appeared in 2017, when the body of a great white shark washed ashore near Gansbaai, another famous South African hotspot for great whites. The wounds were unmistakable: the same clean incision, the missing liver, the precise removal of vital organs. Researchers carefully examined the carcass, collecting every sample they could. Bite mark analysis finally revealed the truth. The wounds had been made by orcas. For the first time, scientists had undeniable evidence that killer whales had not only attacked a great white shark, but had killed it and removed its liver with astonishing precision. It was a discovery that completely changed the understanding of who truly rules the ocean. The discovery that port and starboard had killed a great white shark and removed only its liver was shocking enough. But what truly unsettled researchers was what happened next. The attack was not a rare accident or an isolated event. It was the beginning of a deadly pattern that would transform the marine ecosystem along South Africa's coastline. Over the following years, the two killer whales continued hunting great white sharks with remarkable consistency. Scientists were able to confirm at least 8 kills through physical evidence alone. Each time, a shark carcass washed ashore carrying the same unmistakable wounds. Yet researchers knew those 8 confirmed cases represented only a small fraction of the true number. Most sharks that die at sea never reach land. Their bodies sink into the depths or are consumed by scavengers long before anyone can examine them. Every carcass that appeared on the beach was likely evidence of many more attacks that had gone unseen. It soon became clear that port and starboard were not hunting randomly. They had developed a highly organized strategy. Every encounter suggested planning, coordination, and experience. These were not simply predators looking for food. They were apex predators that had learned how to hunt another apex predator. What made the discovery even more astonishing was the sophistication of their hunting technique. Great white sharks are among the most difficult animals in the ocean to kill. They are incredibly fast, immensely powerful, and equipped with sensory systems capable of detecting even the slightest movement in the surrounding water. Their powerful jaws and razor-sharp teeth make them dangerous opponents for almost any creature. Yet port and starboard had found a way to overcome every one of those advantages. By studying carcasses, Interviewing eyewitnesses and analyzing orca behavior, researchers gradually reconstructed how the attacks unfolded. The two orcas worked together as a team. One would quietly approach the shark from below and behind, the one direction where the shark's senses were least effective. Remaining in this blind spot allowed the orca to get close without being detected. The first strike was never intended to kill the shark. Its purpose was to disable it. With tremendous force, the orca would ram the shark near its pectoral fins. The collision would stun the animal, disrupt its ability to swim properly, and leave it vulnerable. As the shark struggled to recover, the second orca would immediately move in. What happened next revealed an extraordinary understanding of shark biology. Unlike most fish, sharks cannot simply stop and breathe. They must continue swimming so that water flows continuously across their gills. If they stop moving for too long, they begin to suffocate. The orcas had somehow learned this weakness. One of them would seize the shark and flip it upside down. In this inverted position, the shark entered a natural state known as tonic immobility, a temporary paralysis that left it completely motionless and unable to defend itself. The once powerful predator became helpless within seconds. The orca would hold the shark in that position, waiting patiently as it gradually suffocated. Only then would the feeding begin. Surprisingly, the killer whales showed little interest in the rest of the animal. They wanted only one organ: the liver. A great white shark's liver is enormous, sometimes accounting for nearly a quarter of the animal's total body weight. It is packed with squalene, an energy-rich compound that helps provide buoyancy and serves as an exceptional nutritional resource. For an orca, it is by far the most valuable part of the shark. Port and starboard had mastered the fastest way to reach it. They bit through the shark's underside with astonishing precision, making an opening between the pectoral fins before removing the liver almost perfectly intact. In some cases, they also removed the heart. Everything else was abandoned, left behind for scavengers. The efficiency was almost unsettling. There was no wasted effort, no unnecessary damage. These were not chaotic feeding frenzies. They looked more like carefully planned surgical procedures. The consequences extended far beyond the sharks that were killed. Researchers soon noticed that the behavior of surviving great whites had changed dramatically. Sharks that had once dominated South African waters suddenly behaved like frightened prey animals. Whenever port and starboard entered an area, the great whites disappeared. Not after several days, not after repeated attacks, almost immediately. Satellite tagging studies confirmed what scientists were witnessing. Sharks that had occupied the same territories for years abandoned them within hours of detecting the two orcas. They did not return a few days later. Many stayed away for weeks, while others avoided the region for months. For perhaps the first time in their evolutionary history, great white sharks were showing fear. The tracking data revealed even more surprising changes. Sharks began avoiding locations where orcas had previously been detected. They altered migration routes, changed hunting grounds, and abandoned waters they had once ruled without challenge. A single encounter with port and starboard appeared to change a shark's behavior permanently. The fear itself had become contagious. Whether through direct encounters or through the acoustic and chemical signals marine predators used to detect one another, the sharks somehow recognized the danger. One by one, they fled. This explained the mystery of False Bay. The great whites had not disappeared because they had all been killed. They had disappeared because they were terrified. As the sharks vanished, the effects rippled through the ecosystem. The famous cage diving industry that had brought thousands of visitors to South Africa struggled as shark sightings collapsed. At Seal Island, seal numbers began increasing because their primary predator was no longer present. The entire marine food web started reorganizing itself around the absence of great white sharks. Remarkably, two killer whales had accomplished what decades of fishing, pollution, and human activity never had. They had emptied False Bay of great white sharks. As researchers continued investigating port and starboard, they realized this was not an isolated event. Similar patterns began appearing elsewhere. Along the coast of California, tagged great white sharks abandoned areas shortly after orcas arrived. In Australian waters, scientists recorded comparable changes in shark behavior. Even in the Mediterranean, where great white populations were already under pressure, researchers noticed that shark sightings often declined whenever orcas appeared nearby. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Across multiple oceans, killer whales were hunting great white sharks, and the sharks were fleeing. This raised an even more puzzling question. Why now? Orcas and great white sharks have shared the world's oceans for millions of years. Their territories overlap in many regions, meaning they have encountered one another throughout evolutionary history countless times. So why had orcas suddenly begun targeting great whites? Why were sharks suddenly abandoning entire ecosystems out of fear? What had changed? Many researchers believe the answer may lie in the changes humans have imposed on the ocean itself. Around the world, orca populations have been affected by pollution, increasing underwater noise from ships, and declining numbers of their traditional prey caused by overfishing. While some populations have struggled, others have adapted in remarkable ways. They have learned new hunting techniques. They have expanded their diets. They have become more innovative than ever before. Port and starboard may represent one of the most extraordinary examples of that adaptation. Their unusual hunting strategy may have developed because they needed alternative food sources. Once they discovered that great white sharks could be killed and that their nutrient-rich livers provided an enormous reward, the behavior quickly became part of their hunting routine. And like many hunting techniques among killer whales, it may not remain unique for long. Scientists believe port and starboard may be part of a much larger story unfolding across the world's oceans. Orca populations everywhere have been forced to adapt to an environment that humans have dramatically altered. Toxic pollutants have accumulated in their blubber over decades. The constant noise of cargo ships and industrial activity interferes with the sounds they rely on to communicate and hunt. At the same time, overfishing has reduced many of the fish and marine mammals that traditionally sustained them. In some regions, entire orca populations have declined. Others, however, have responded in a very different way. They adapted. Instead of relying on familiar prey, they developed new hunting strategies. They began targeting species they had rarely hunted before. They became more flexible, more creative, and more willing to experiment than scientists had ever expected. Port and starboard may be among the most remarkable examples of that adaptation. Their collapsed dorsal fins suggest that something unusual happened during their development, possibly stress, trauma, or long-term environmental pressures. Whatever shaped their lives also seems to have shaped the way they hunt. Faced with changing oceans, they may have discovered a food source that other orcas had largely ignored: great white sharks. Once they realized that these supposedly invincible predators could be killed, they uncovered an extraordinary reward. A great white's massive liver provided an enormous supply of nutrient-rich energy. More importantly, they learned a hunting method that worked, and then they taught it to one another. That possibility worries scientists far beyond the coast of South Africa. If one pair of orcas can learn to hunt great white sharks, there is little reason to believe the behavior must remain unique. Orcas are famous for passing hunting techniques from one generation to the next. Their knowledge spreads culturally, much like traditions in human societies. If this strategy continues spreading through different pods, it may not stop with great white sharks. Other shark species could eventually become targets as well. If that happens, the balance of the ocean's food chain could change, in ways scientists have never witnessed before. Great white sharks are far more than just impressive predators. They perform essential roles within marine ecosystems. By hunting seals and sea lions, they help regulate those populations. They often remove weaker or unhealthy animals, strengthening prey populations over time. Simply by existing, they influence where countless marine animals choose to feed, rest, and reproduce. Ecologists call this a landscape of fear, where the presence of a top predator shapes the behavior of every species beneath it. Remove the great white sharks, and that balance begins to unravel. Seal populations increase rapidly. As their numbers grow, they consume larger quantities of fish. Those declines then ripple through the food web, affecting species that may never encounter a shark directly. Researchers believe this process has already begun in False Bay. Since the great whites disappeared, Seal Island's seal population has continued to grow. Larger seal colonies require more food, placing additional pressure on local fish stocks. Fishing communities have already reported shifts in the species they catch and the numbers available. Scientists believe these changes may only be the beginning. For the great white shark itself, this new threat is unlike anything it has faced during its long evolutionary history. For approximately 16 million years, great whites evolved as hunters, not prey. Every aspect of their anatomy reflects that role. Their senses, their instincts, and their behavior are all designed to locate, pursue, and kill other animals. They were never designed to defend themselves from predators above them. They possess no deeply evolved fear of orcas because, for most of their evolutionary history, such fear was unnecessary. Instead, they rely on experience. And experience comes at a terrible cost. To learn that an orca is dangerous, a shark must first survive an encounter. Many never do. Those that escape appear to remember. Researchers believe surviving sharks communicate danger through changes in behavior, chemical signals released into the water, and other subtle forms of communication that marine animals use to detect threats. As a result, fear spreads far more quickly than the killer whales themselves. A single encounter with port and starboard can keep great white sharks away from an area for months. That may be even more significant than the number of sharks the orcas actually kill. Port and starboard alone are unlikely to eliminate great white sharks through direct predation, but they do not need to. If they frighten enough sharks into abandoning traditional habitats, changing migration routes, and altering hunting behavior, they can reshape entire ecosystems without killing large numbers of animals. In this case, fear has become more powerful than teeth, and the evidence continues to grow. In 2023, researchers documented port and starboard hunting great white sharks in new locations, expanding well beyond the areas where they were first observed. Even more concerning, other killer whales have now been seen attempting similar hunting techniques. The behavior may already be spreading. What began as the innovation of two extraordinary individuals could eventually become a hunting tradition shared across multiple orca populations. If that happens, the ocean's most famous predator could find itself facing an enemy unlike any it has encountered before. Not fishing nets, not pollution, not climate change. Another predator. One that hunts cooperatively, one that learns from every successful attack, one that passes knowledge from generation to generation. A predator that has discovered how to kill what many believed could never be killed. For the scientists studying port and starboard, this creates a difficult dilemma. The killer whales are not invasive animals. They are not behaving unnaturally. They are simply doing what predators have always done, finding new ways to survive in a changing world. Their intelligence is astonishing. Their adaptability is extraordinary. The ecological consequences may be profound, but there is nothing unnatural about what they are doing. As astonishing as the discovery is, there is very little humans can do to change it. Scientists cannot protect great white sharks from killer whales. We cannot build barriers across the ocean. We cannot teach sharks to recognize predators they never evolved to fear. And we cannot interfere in a predator-prey relationship that has unfolded entirely beyond human control. All we can do is observe. We can document what is happening. We can try to understand why it is happening. And perhaps most importantly, we can accept that the ocean is changing in ways we never predicted, and in ways we may never be able to control. For roughly 16 million years, the great white shark evolved to dominate the seas. It survived ice ages, mass extinctions, shifting continents, and dramatic changes in Earth's oceans. Throughout that immense span of time, it remained one of nature's ultimate predators. Now, for the first time, it appears to be facing an opponent that may be even more intelligent, more adaptable, and more capable of innovation. No one knows how this story will end, but the evidence already collected is impossible to ignore. When scientists finally uncovered what was responsible for the mysterious deaths of South Africa's great white sharks, the answer was nothing like they expected. It was not a deadly disease. It was not pollution. It was not climate change. It was another animal. An animal that learned something new. An animal that discovered a weakness no one believed existed. An animal capable of hunting the ocean's most feared predator with a level of precision and coordination that scientists are still trying to understand. Port and starboard changed everything. Because of them, the great white sharks of South Africa experienced something they had almost never known throughout their evolutionary history. They became prey. The fear spread from shark to shark. Entire populations abandoned waters they had ruled for generations. The ecosystem itself began to transform as one of its most important predators disappeared. And somewhere off the cold coastline of South Africa, port and starboard continue to patrol the ocean. They continue refining their hunting techniques. They continue expanding their range. And if scientists are correct, they may even be passing their knowledge to other killer whales. That possibility may be the most significant part of this entire story. Despite everything that has happened, great white sharks are not on the verge of extinction. They inhabit oceans across the world and remain one of the planet's most resilient marine species. 2 orcas alone cannot eliminate them, but they have changed something far more important. They have changed the balance. For centuries, humans believed the great white shark represented the final level of the ocean's food chain. Now we know even the apex predator has a predator of its own. The animal once thought to be unkillable can, in fact, be killed. Every shark carcass that washed onto South African beaches carried the same disturbing message: the carefully opened chest, the surgically removed liver, the missing heart, the untouched body left behind for scavengers. Each one told the same story.